listeners, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear Out Loud and Proud what Minnesotans are thinking. And I am your host, Philip Anthony, joined today by my co-host, Austin Ballhagen. And I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. And we hope that you're all doing
fantabulous.
Yeah. What is fantabulous?
It is fabulous and fantastic put together.
Yeah, the other way. That's okay.
Okay.
Fantastic and put together. It's also twice as nice.
Twice as nice.
And it saves what?
Saves time.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, we got to get the whole thing in there. Yeah. So today is going to be our co-host day, and I'm sure you all noticed we're missing someone today. Matt Amundsen is not here today. He's under the weather, and we hope he gets better real soon. We miss you, Matt, and so does Austin.
Absolutely. We hope you're back up on your feet in a couple of days and doing better in time for the holidays.
Yes, and we wish you a very happy holiday as well, Matt. Get better, okay? We want to see you here next time, okay? And another thing I want to talk about is today's show is the 50th episode of the show.
What? That's exciting. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I didn't either until, when I did the legwork for the show, and I looked and I said, this is episode 50. That's craziness.
Congratulations. You've been doing this for 50 shows.
I know. And
that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm speechless right now. I didn't realize it again until I did the legwork and said, oh, this is episode 50. So thank you all for spending 50 episodes with us. And Austin's been here. Well, she had her own show. We did a show with her alone.
Mm-hmm.
You did the anniversary show, and you did the first co-host show. This is your fourth time, I think.
This is numero 4.
Numero quattro.
Not quite 50.
Yeah, well, in time you may be here 50 times, and who knows, So also we're going to talk about Christmas a little bit before we start the show, because we got to get deep in the weeds about all the drama that's going on in this country. But do you have any plans for the holidays?
We don't really do anything big or special. This is my favorite time of the year, though. I love winter. I love when it gets cold. I love the outdoors. My body doesn't do great on ice, but I was made to take some falls, and it was a good choice. So.
You don't look like a sled to me. Yeah.
Do you do anything special?
Well, yes. We were invited to have a Christmas Day dinner at a friend's.
Nice.
And then Boxing Day, we're going to be doing something as well.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I have 2 days to celebrate the holidays. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the good food and the camaraderie, the friendship. That's the important thing with the holidays, guys, right? Is having people that you love, people that you care about around you. And I think we forget that sometimes. It's not about going out and buying presents and the capitalism of the season. It's more about love. It's more about the connections and family and friends.
Absolutely.
So I guess we're gonna have to start the show now. We have to get a little sad first, and then we move ahead.
Yes.
We try to uplift after we talk about the doldrums. Then we move up to the crest and the peak. Right? That's my aim in the show. Right? Awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
End on a good note.
Yeah, and exactly. We have to try to do that. So today, this is going to be a little longer, this question, so then, you can help me out afterwards. Today, I thought we'd start about talking about an issue that can be very well affect all childbearing people in this country. And a Texas woman named Kate Cox, have you heard about her?
Mm-hmm.
And her doctor requested permission from a lower Texas court to proceed with the termination of a pregnancy due to her diagnosis of full trisomy 18. It's a chromosomal anomaly. Due to her, this diagnosis, an extreme chromosomal anomaly, I left the extreme out, which meant that if her baby was even born alive at all, the child would survive only minutes or hours outside of the womb, possibly a day, they said. Mm-hmm. Basically, a pregnancy was going to end in heartbreak. The only question was when, right? If she was forced to go through with the pregnancy, there would be a chance she would die or never be able to give birth again. It's critical, right?
Mhm.
And a lower court judge said that she could receive the abortion care she requested. So it started off on a good note, right? But within hours of the ruling, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who was impeached, by the way, sent a threatening letter to the employers of Cox's doctor saying, quote, "We feel it is important for you to understand the potential long-term implications if you permit such an abortion to occur at your facility," basically threatening the facility with
Mhm.
using his power as Attorney General. Paxton then appealed the ruling to the Supreme Court of Texas Supreme Court. Knowing how precarious her situation was, Cox left the state to seek a safe abortion before it was too late. The longer you wait, the more precarious it is for her and um, her future ability to give birth. So to add insult to injury, after Cox left the state, the Texas Supreme Court agreed with Paxton and said that the doctors had not proven that, quote, Cox's condition poses the risks the exception requires, basically ignoring the life of the mother exception. Your thoughts? I know this is a long question.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this because this is craziness. It really is.
It's long and it's complex, and it is something that right, so there's a number of different issues here, and you've got in anybody that has seen the interviews with Miss Cox and the heartbreak that she has gone through, in terms of this is an extreme risk to her. This is a risk to her if she ever wants to have a child in the future, and knowing that if she were to have had to carry that pregnancy to term, it's likely that it wouldn't have been viable, which puts her at extreme risk. And in addition to that, even in a slim chance that she would have delivered a live birth, that child immediately would have been put into hospice care, and lived minutes, hours, maybe days. And what kind of existence is that for someone, for her child, is just nobody should have to face those decisions. But adding to that, already being a horrible situation, you've now got her dealing with this legal mess, entanglement in Texas, in a judicial system that is not designed to handle these types of questions in a timely or effective manner. And when you're making these big healthcare decisions, even waiting, you find out one thing, hours later you're being told another. It puts her in jeopardy. It puts the people that facilitate healthcare in jeopardy. And medical providers should not have to face these kind of hoops or jump through them, to give care. And abortion is healthcare. At the end of the day, abortion is a necessary part of healthcare. And for women in Cox's position, and I should preface, not just women, for people in Cox's position. And I want to say thank you for using the term, or phrasing it as people that bear children, because there are women that bear children. There are
Childbearing children. I'm
men,
childbearing people. Excuse me.
yeah,
Yes,
men and non-binary people. So thank you for phrasing it that
you're
way.
welcome.
But for those people to be in a position where you're faced with literally having to go through so many additional steps on top of the emotional heartbreak of having to make these decisions for yourself, for your family. In many of these cases where things get to this point, these are people that wanted to have children. They're trying to have children. These are not people, and the reasons why somebody wants to seek an abortion I mean, they should not matter. That's your choice and your decision. But it's just unfortunate that we then burden these people with so many extra legal hoops that they need to jump through, and the vitriol that's thrown at them, and the attention that you're suddenly thrust into the spotlight when you're just trying to take care of yourself and your family.
And this poor woman, she has to leave the state where where her support system is, her
Hmm.
family, her friends. She has to leave a state, go somewhere completely strange to her, be around strangers. Unless, I mean, we don't know the situation. I don't want to say that, but I don't want to jump to any conclusions. But what I'm thinking, I'm hearing is that I mean, she has maybe one person that did accompany her um, to another state, and the state hasn't even been revealed. We don't even know, for her
For
own
their safety.
protection. Exactly. And what do you think about another thing I'm hearing as well? This case is scaring OBGYNs to death.
Hmm.
They are scared to practice in Texas. What do you think this is going to do for female healthcare in these red states?
It is very alarming. And there was a case in Kansas a while back with a woman that was seeking. She needed an abortion, and it was determined to be life threatening. And they were like, "Oh, well, we're not sure. We gotta see what the court says." She went to several different hospitals who were like, "Ooh, we really need to call our legal team before we look at you." And she has now sued. And I forget the name of it, but she has now sued with this delay in healthcare and people that were afraid of making these decisions for the impact that it would have on them. And this was all right before this was like the same time this was all up in the air in Kansas before the vote like certified that yes, Kansas was not going to ban abortion. But even in that kind of gray area where people were like, oh, we don't know if this is going to pass or not, you literally have healthcare providers saying, "Let me call my legal team before I administer life-saving care." This woman that had to endure that has now sued because of the delays with that. She can never have children again, and she wanted to be a mother. She wanted to start a family, and there are still other ways people can start families and other you can adopt children, you can foster. There are many ways to create a family, and they're all beautiful and wonderful, and one does not have value over the other. But to go through that when that was what you had planned, I mean, that's why this is a choice, right? People make a choice about how they want to start their family and what they want to do. And when healthcare providers are put in a position that their hands are tied or they feel like they can't administer life-saving treatment, I'm not a doctor, but it's
Neither
my
am I. Yeah.
understanding you take a Hippocratic oath to do, to help, to do no harm, and seems like we're doing harm.
Yeah,
So
we are. And that poor young girl in I'm not sure of the state. It's escaping me, but she was like 10 and she got raped and she got pregnant and she had to go to another state. A 10-year-old
I
girl
think that was Ohio.
could be.
Okay, I might be wrong on that, but yeah, it
It
was
doesn't matter. It doesn't.
horrendous.
It could be anywhere because we're America. We're supposed to be one country. Not a bunch of little duchies as they call
Hmm.
it. But see, this is my thing. If you don't want an abortion, don't get one. I don't think our side ever forced anybody not to. I mean, to get an abortion. We just want you to have the choice. If it's safe for you, what the people around you think, what you think, is it healthy for you? There's so many variables about abortion. It's health care for the woman on top of it.
Hmm.
So what do you think about that expression when people say, if you don't want an abortion, don't get one?
So in theory, right, that's a good thing. The
Yes,
problem with that is you're right, it is a complex issue, and there are a lot of people that
think it's a life.
think it's a life. There's also people that think, or not necessarily think, but find themselves facing a position where this is not the ideal outcome that they wanted, but this is what they need to go through to protect themselves, to protect, you know, a good chunk of women, people, I should say, a good chunk of people that receive abortion care, they're already parents, and they might be making that decision because it's the best outcome for the children they already have. It might be a decision because of their situation, for their health. It's not our business to know. And with that, abortion can't just be available, it also has to be accessible. And so when we
And
see
safe.
and safe, and when we
Mhm.
see restrictions put in place, for example, like hospital admitting privileges was a hot one for many years, where Republican legislatures were requiring all of these additional steps to allow abortion providers to continue existing, that like other facilities that perform far more dangerous procedures don't have to have. And it basically made it so yes, abortion was still technically legal, but it was not accessible. So it cannot just be available, it has to also be accessible.
Yeah, yeah. And I always talk about my personal experience with abortion. The reason why I am pro-choice. My great aunt. This is back in the 30s, I want to say. could be the early 40s. I'm not quite sure, but she lived in New York. Obviously, it was before Roe versus Wade was the case was even introduced, and Roe versus Wade became law. 1930. I want to say, I think it might have been 38ish. I'm not sure, but she had to go to she got pregnant she was date raped.
Mm. Wow.
And she didn't want to have this man's baby, and neither would I.
Yeah,
Personally,
completely
you know,
understandable.
she went to a back alley in New York to get this abortion, and she almost hemorrhaged. There, she's bleeding profusely. They barely got it to stop bleeding, and she had 2 stillbirths after that because they did something there. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know the scientific reason why that was happening, but it took her 3 or 4 pregnancies to finally give birth to my cousin.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and so see, everybody has a personal reason, why they pursue this procedure. And again, it's I feel that Americans have a lot of problems with people keeping their mind minding their own business.
Yes.
This one country, I think, of the whole world, where people look at other people and go, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And you become the moral majority, the moral policeman, and I'm done with it. I'm done. And I think I don't want another woman to go through what my great aunt had to go through. So yeah, that's why I brought this up.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping that more and more states have, referenda where they can vote. If you let the people vote, you notice what they're doing, even in red states.
Right?
What are they doing? They're voting to keep the choice on the table.
Mm-hmm.
They're not saying, and this other thing, I have to say this before we've been on abortion a long time here, but it's an important issue.
It is.
You know how you hear on the other side, oh, Democrats want to have abortions in the 8th month. They no, we don't want that. We want the availability. If what's happening to Miss Cox is going to happen to another woman, we want that on the table. Yes, we do, because if it's going to kill the woman and obviously the fetus as well, we want to prevent that from happening. So anyway, do you have anything else to end this with?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it comes down to the most qualified people to make decisions about what should and shouldn't be available, and what healthcare decisions a person seeks is that individual and medical professionals. It is not Republican legislators. It is not, it comes down to those should be decisions made in terms of healthcare. But the GOP loves to find government just small enough to fit in your doctor's office.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So
absolutely. Just this is what I have to say. Don't tell people what to do out there, guys. Take care of yourself. Worry about your family. Worry about your friends. Don't worry about what other people are doing, especially with their own body on top
exactly.
of it. Anyway, so now we have to piggyback on this. So
sadly,
this is going to be a show about, but it's an important issue. Again, I can't stress it enough. The U.S. Supreme Court agreed to hear a case regarding mifepristone. You know that you've heard of that drug, a drug used as a substitute for clinical or medical abortion. What do you think the result of that ruling would be, and what would the adverse effects be to women if the court would find a ban would be okay?
Yeah, it's this goes back to, again, abortion can't just be available, it has to be accessible as well. And the bulk of abortions in the US are facilitated through the use of mifepristone. It's been FDA approved and used for 20 plus years without, it is a safe way to handle abortion. And it cuts to if there were to be a ban on this, yes, we do have wonderful states, and Minnesota is one of them, where we have, codified into law and made sure that there are protections in place for abortion care. And people are coming here and are seeking services here because they cannot get them at home. And that is for people that are lucky enough to be able to have that privilege to do so. If there was a ban in place, there have been questions about the ability of, even in states where this is protected, about the availability and accessibility of it. So it does start to impact that. And for people, regardless of income and regardless of social status and age and many other factors, need abortions, right? This is not limited to one class of people, one income bracket. It's not limited to one race. And people that have the money and the privilege to travel will always have the ability to go somewhere and seek safe abortion care. People that don't, really, it puts people in dire straits, whether that means they're seeking alternatives that are not safe, whether it means that they're choosing to proceed with a pregnancy that they cannot um, care for, whether or that's safe for them to continue. Um, Actually, interestingly enough, earlier this week I was reading that Florida, where they have really tried to crack down, has actually had an increase in abortion rates. So Ron DeSantis's effort to stamp this out was not viable. And he was quoted as saying, no, he would never go after women that seek an abortion. That's not his decision. And really got taken to town with, because you passed these laws that said, you're going to prosecute people, you're going to go after people. And he really gave a waffly answer. So,
Yeah. And I'm hearing also that they want to, the Supreme Court may ban, if they find in favor of banning mifepristone, a ban on mailing it from state to state. So
mhm.
even if you live in a state where your it's abortion, quote unquote, is legal, you may not even be able to get it if the place that produces the mifepristone is out of state. So this is going to be interesting. I'm hoping that again, the freedom to do what you want with your own body is still going to be available,
With an FDA approved medication that's shown
that
for over
hasn't,
20
yeah,
years
has
that it's
not,
perfectly
yeah,
safe.
thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's a very safe pharmaceutical that has never, from what I'm hearing, ever caused anybody any harm. So yeah, we have to hope that the court, well, with this court, you never know,
Right?
because they overturned double precedent with Roe. You had
Yeah.
two cases, Casey
Yeah.
and Roe. Casey buttressed Roe and said that yeah, women have the right to, or childbearing people have the right to an abortion if they so choose. That's a tongue twister, but
Mhm.
let's just hope people write to your Congress people, and hopefully this will push them to maybe do something to prevent the banning of this important pharmaceutical.
We
So
certainly hope so.
yeah, now we're going to go on a different track here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk about somebody named Hunter Biden. You remember him?
I do.
Yeah. Why is the gas? What my husband makes me laugh. He goes, "Why are the gas price?" I said, "Why are the gas prices going down?" He goes, "Oh, it's Hunter Biden's laptop. Everything is Hunter Biden's laptop." I mean, it's hilarious. Anyway, as you know, House Republicans authorized an impeachment inquiry of President Biden, despite the lack of evidence. So you're bringing up this is hilarious to me. Just to get back, because Trump is telling them to do that. I mean, come on,
Mhm.
you don't have to have a rocket science degree to know that. Anyway, I think they're having a problem distinguishing between the president and his son. I think that's the issue here. House Republicans are accusing the president of trading access during his time as vice president, and also the time afterwards, and that the president profited from Hunter Biden's business dealings. Okay, so he wasn't president; he was vice president, if at all they could connect it, which it doesn't seem they are. And then also the time after he was president, so he was nothing; he
Mhm.
was a citizen. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, so
This is crazy, right?
it is, and there's a couple points with this. So one, Congress does not, the House of Representatives does not have to pass to proceed with an impeachment, to interview witnesses, to read documents. They've read tens of thousands of documents have been turned over by the Biden administration and others in investigating this, and they've found nothing. There is no link that President Biden ever profited from anything, ever used or exerted influence in a way to push for this or benefit himself or his family. We have Republicans that have been in favor of these impeachment inquiry that have outright said They do not believe President Biden has done anything illegal or criminal or that there's any tie here. Don Bacon, representative in Nebraska who voted for the inquiry, has said he does not think there's any link between Joe Biden and Hunter Biden on this. He doesn't think Biden's done anything wrong, but he fully supports the impeachment inquiry because of the 2024 election. And that has been a recurring theme from quite a number of Republicans, that, you're saying the quiet part out loud, that on one hand, you're saying, hey, we're not finding any evidence and we don't think there is, but we're doing this because we want to influence the 2024 election and create bad publicity. And I forget his name. Oh, there's a congressman that when he was asked, like, why did you vote for this impeachment inquiry? His quote was Trump 2024,
Yeah,
baby.
you read my mind. I was going to bring that up. Yeah, I don't know his name either, but yeah, I saw that he was walking out of the Capitol, and a reporter says, "So, what do you think of this impeachment inquiry?" He goes, "Trump 2024."
Mhm.
So that's that. In a nutshell, is what they are doing. They're trying to say, okay, you double impeach Trump, so Trump's saying let's impeach Biden,
Mhm.
so it's an even split, and so it makes him look bad.
And it's disappointing that, something that should be used and reserved and should be taken seriously is now getting thrown out as a political tool that wastes time, it wastes money, it wastes government resources. And the bigger, people would argue, well, you went after Trump. There was credible evidence there. There was, significant findings from those impeachment inquiries. Like, these are not the same thing. You're comparing apples and oranges when you try to put the two side by side.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't even have this on my notes, but as I was leaving the house, and I told you in the car we were coming here, Shay Moss
Mhm.
and Ruby Freeman
Ugh.
just were rewarded 100 and this makes me laugh. I'm sorry. I have to chuckle. $148 million
Mhm.
for what Rudy Giuliani, you know who he is, people, right? Um, did to those two innocent people who were just election workers. Do you have a
Yeah.
quick response? Because I didn't even plan on talking about it, but I was like, oh my God, $148 million. Where's he first of all going to get that money?
I don't think he is. He's being sued by former defense attorneys for $1 million in unpaid legal fees that he owes them yet. He owes over $60,000 in phone bills that he hasn't paid. He still, in a separate judgment, um, previously had been these two women whose lives he destroyed.
Oh,
Let's
absolutely.
let's go there. He owes them, or he owes $200,000 in their legal fees on top of the 148 million that they've been awarded.
Yeah.
These women were threatened, harassed. They have been through the ringer
Oh, I
in
know. It's
terms of
awful.
just being an election judge. And then he leaves the courtroom and proceeds to continue to defame them. And I was so pleased to hear their attorney say, we're open to future litigation if the problem continues.
Defamation.
Or yes, defamation, because it's clearly not being solved. And I don't, where Giuliani's descent into madness started, I'm not sure we can pinpoint, but it is progressively spiraling.
It's the worst fall of a hero I can think of in my lifetime, because this
Just
man was
wild.
America's mayor.
Hmm.
After 9/11, he was, out there in the breathing in the soot and talking to the first responders and doing all that. I think he was Time Person of the Year in 2001, from
Might
what
have
I
been.
remember. And look what happened to him. He just fell into a rabbit hole with Trump. And I
Mhm.
and I told you in the car, right? Everything that the ex-president touches turns to doo-doo.
Mhm.
Because I don't want to say the other word. I'll say doo-doo.
Totally
It's
understandable.
good. Let's move to let's keep on this train with Trump. We have time here. The twice impeached ex-president, as some polls will substantiate, claimed he is getting more and more African American support. This is a joke to me. I don't know. For his campaign, despite his stance on Obamacare, his opposition to greater diversity in the workplace, his efforts to restrict voting rights, and the Trump family's history of denying rentals to prospective Black tenants, his taking out a full-page ad in the New York Times against the Central Park Five before hearing any evidence, which later exonerated all of them, and finally his racist birther campaign. I mean, this man is a steamroller of racism. I'm sorry, if you want to say he's not, deny everything I just said, then you're lying. Okay, and I hate when people do this and they try to make him out to be, Mother Teresa. He's not. I mean, these are all, I'm not making this up. This has been substantiated. I don't talk about baloney on my show. All right. So, any thoughts on, if you believe, which I don't, African Americans will support him in greater numbers this time around?
I don't think it's likely. And I think
I
you
don't
hit the
believe the
nail on
polls.
the
Be
I think you hit the nail on the
Come
head
on.
when you mention efforts to restrict voting rights and access to voting. We have seen Republican efforts in many states that predominantly target communities of color. And whether that be restricting hours and access to polling locations or moving them or closing and consolidating locations so that you wind up with these extremely long polling lines, ending access to early voting. Voting rights have been under attack for a long
Can't even
time.
give water to people standing in line for hours,
Mm-hmm.
which is inhumane to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could go on and on about that. But the thing that I want to say is I want to connect this to what we talked about with Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman.
Absolutely.
What do they have in common?
Right.
For Trump, they looked for people that looked like the people that don't like him, and tried to demonize them. And if you look at the cities where the votes are considered stolen, Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, what do they have in common? So you see what I'm saying? There's a trend that you can't deny, right?
Oh, absolutely. The GOP has done, bent over backwards to disenfranchise Black voters, and that's certainly not the only population, historically excluded population that they have tried to disenfranchise. But they have really done a number there. So one, it seems really disingenuous in the first place to claim this. But two, you add to the fact that you have taken wide steps to limit access for these people to be able to vote. You're not getting support from that community.
But they're trying to say that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And poor Shay Moss, she was a poll worker for a decade. I mean, a dedicated.
And I think it was. Excuse me for interrupting. I think you're right. Also, the mother, they needed help that year or something. The year 2020, and Shay Moss said, "Mom, would you mind helping at the polling location because we're short?"
Yeah.
Okay, so she wasn't even going to do this.
Yeah, two women that stepped up to help their community, and then
I know,
just totally get raked through the coals.
Oh my God, it is so. I mean, they had to change their names. They had to move. I think Ruby Freeman was saying on a news conference that she misses her neighbors and her friends, but she can't disclose where she's going to live now. She has to be pretty much in the witness protection program.
Yeah, they were getting really specific, horrific, terrifying threats. It's awful what these two women went through to ensure their people in their community could vote, could turn out.
Yeah, it's sad. So people, don't be intimidated. Still vote.
Absolutely.
Don't let anybody intimidate you. If you feel intimidated, report it. We are still a democracy till further notice. That's what I say. And no, really,
I love that. I love that.
No, we are till further notice. I mean, if I'm going to say this, I don't know if people want to hear this, but we are in a very bad state right now because he's ahead in the polls. Voldemort.
Yeah,
in a lot, and it's amazing after all that's happened. I mean, look, Biden wasn't my first choice either, and you and I discussed this way back in the day. Nobody is perfect, a perfect candidate, but at least the one thing I can say about Joe Biden is he doesn't want to overthrow the government, and he doesn't want to impose a dictatorship in this country. That's the one thing I can say about him.
Absolutely.
And that's important to me.
Absolutely.
The last thing I want to talk about on my end of the ropes here.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna talk about some things that Austin wants to talk about. Because it's not only my show today. We have to share the wealth here. Um, this is a world news thing, and I very rarely incorporate world news unless I think it's really, 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 really important. So the BBC reported that European leaders have decided to open EU membership talks with Ukraine and Moldova. Do you think this would be a good idea, admitting those two countries into the European Union? Or would it agitate Putin and make him do something crazy or make a drastic move? What do you think?
I do think it's a good thing. And there's a number of reasons for that, right? So, in the short run, Ukraine has been, Russia crossed the border, physically invaded. That was in 2022, February 2022. We're going to be coming up on the 2-year anniversary of that. And that, Ukrainian Russian war has really gone on far longer. You have the annexation of Crimea in 2014, different, especially in the eastern portion of Ukraine. With Russian backed separatists that had taken over government buildings. And I think I read that there were 29 failed ceasefires just in that kind of period of like 2014, 2015. And now with Republicans in the House, we are seeing they're holding up aid for Ukraine over border disputes with the Biden administration. And I will say I'm a little concerned with some of the things, the ideas that the Biden administration has floated to try and get this aid package for Ukraine passed.
Oh, bring it up. Yeah, I want to hear all the, because I didn't get all the specifics because it's not, they haven't even agreed on anything yet. So this
Yeah.
is all supposition, but go ahead and tell the audience what you heard so
Nothing's
far.
been agreed on, but some of the proposals that have been reported as being floated that Biden might agree to would include continuing the its Title 42 policy, which was implemented under Stephen Miller in the Trump
That was a
administration.
COVID policy, wasn't it?
Sort of. It was done as a public health, using an old public health law, but taken wildly out of context to basically restrict the ability of people to claim asylum in the States. And so to claim asylum in the United States, you have to reach the US to claim asylum.
Right, you do.
And there previously we had only had an agreement with one country, which was Canada, which was where people could say, like, go into Canada, say, hey, I want to claim asylum in the US. And then they would go through an interview process and be in Canada for a while before they came here because it wasn't safe for them to be where they had originally come from or be in other places. During the Trump administration, this was started and it was expanded upon during the Biden administration, which is basically people that turn out to claim asylum. We're sending them to Mexico and to Guatemala, or telling them that you need to apply. You will automatically be declined if you did not previously apply to claim asylum on your way to the U.S., whether that be in Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala is another one, Nicaragua. There's this whole chunk of countries that we're sending people to that, like, they're not even originally from there. They don't speak the language. They don't have any resources. They are not entitled to or allowed or given any sort of legal representation. And in some cases, they've sent women that were in labor, literally in labor, back across the border. They've sent women that gave birth here. And then, that child is now a U.S. citizen. They have sent the child and the woman back to Mexico to await asylum hearing. And it's called expedited deportation or expedited, basically decision making on their asylum plea, which if these people don't say like certain magic words when they're interviewed, you get turned away. There's a backlog right now of over 800,000 asylum cases waiting to be determined. And the bigger thing that immigration advocates have argued for is the places where we're sending these people and telling them you have to wait are not safe, especially for LGBTQ people seeking asylum. There are so many issues with violence, and many of these countries where we've now got this partnership with have a level 3 State Department travel advisory, which says reconsider your travel, you shouldn't go here. But we're telling people seeking asylum that are the most vulnerable, hey, it's perfectly safe, just hang out there till we can figure out what we're going to do.
But I'm going to interrupt you 1 second. You said before that they're deporting babies that were born in the United States.
There
Isn't birthright citizenship still part of the
Mhm,
law in the United States?
mhm.
So how are they getting away
The
with
ACLU is there's actually a case on their or a page on their there's several cases that they're working with women that had given birth here and then we're literally told like yep we'll transport you to a hospital like a safe waiting space and then they wind up back in Mexico while they're waiting for their asylum hearing to come through and they're not being given paperwork immediately to prove that their child is US citizen and they've had to legally fight for that.
but isn't that on the birth certificate that they were born in that
They're not
hospital?
given a birth certificate.
I feel
There are
weird.
3 cases where they were not given a
Ay,
birth certificate. But anyways, so where I'm going with all this is
it's
the Biden
so
administration
sick.
is floating approving some of these to get the Ukrainian aid package,
Oh,
which has
really?
caused a lot of consternation, with Republicans and with Democrats. And obviously we wanna get this Ukrainian aid package passed. It's critical. Putin's whole plan relies on kinda waiting us out and hoping that we're gonna get tired of it and aid is going to drop off because that is sadly what happens so many times with people facing, insurmountable odds. So I think it's great that the EU is stepping up their, possibility of commitments and looking at potential membership because it is critical and important. These
Yeah.
poor Ukrainian people have been fighting this for a long, long, long time. But
They
with
need the aid,
they need the aid, and it's
no
it's
question.
disgusting that Republicans are holding this up and putting Biden in a really impossible position of having to make potentially really awful, icky calls to get aid to people that need it, that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
have to make one call or the other.
Yeah, and the president has to, he has to make a deal with the devil. I mean, you have the Republicans who will not concede about
Mhm.
Ukraine. It should really be Ukraine aid as a separate issue. Send them the money because if Putin wins that war, okay, who's to stop him?
Oh,
Do you
100%.
remember Hitler? Remember the guy? Remember that guy in World War II? Neville Chamberlain in England goes, okay, if you take Czechoslovakia, that's okay, but just make sure you stop there. I mean, no, you don't deal with despots that way. Despots,
Despots. Yeah.
despots.
Well, and that's
I
the
don't.
thing. There's no guarantee that Republicans will actually then go on board with this. There's
Yeah,
nothing in writing. Michael Bennett in Colorado said the talks were really productive, but
keep your fingers
it's
crossed.
concerning. It's very
Yeah,
concerning.
well, we still pray for the people in Ukraine. Children are dying left and right. They're freezing
Mhm.
to death. They don't have heat. They don't have water. They don't have food. It's sick. It's really sick. Same thing with Gaza, sick. But I digress. Now it's your turn here. We have
Oh,
7 minutes left, and
yeah.
so Austin's going to talk about some things that are pertinent to Minnesota. State issues I basically want to talk about right now because she's the expert in chief on Minnesota politics. Well, I'm just a jack of all trades and a master of none. But Austin, did you have anything you want to talk about regarding Minnesota politics?
Yeah, there's definitely some exciting things that are coming. So January 1st, 2024, there's going to be a couple new laws that are implemented that were previously passed, and these are things that the DFL trifecta worked hard to get. Dems in Minnesota have wanted to get these things done for a long time, and this is it. It shows when you elect DFLers, this is what can happen, right? So starting January 2020 or January 1st, 2024, the new paid time off sick and safe leave rules take effect, which means pretty much all workers in Minnesota, there are a handful of exceptions, but pretty much all workers in Minnesota have to start accruing PTO. And for certain, there's a level with really, really, really tiny businesses. I think it's under 5 or 6 people where they don't get paid time off, but you do still have to allow them to accrue unpaid time off or take unpaid time off. So this is huge. And there's a quote, and I can't remember which DFL legislator said it, but this is the floor, right, for what businesses should be providing, and they certainly encourages businesses to go above and beyond. But at the base minimum, whether you're a part-time employee or a full-time employee, for every so many hours that you work, you will accrue PTO or unpaid time, up to 80 hours a year. So it's great for people that, I've worked many jobs with no PTO, and people have to have paid time off. It's just it's a necessity, especially.
Especially people who are just had children. They
Absolutely.
need to be bond with their children. They want you shouldn't be sending people right back to work after they just gave birth and they went through all that trying time. It's you need some time to bond. You need some time to be with your partner or your child. And it's sick that they're throwing people back to work
Well,
without
and
any rest.
I will say these laws kind of still do that. And that's why I think the quote about this being the floor is really accurate, because you can get 6 days off. So that's what you get in a year if you
Better
work,
than one.
which is better than one and better than none,
Oh, better
but
than none.
very
Yeah.
much the minimum. And we also have, starting in January, the new red flag laws will take effect, along with background checks. And these are things that were really common sense firearm safety legislation that help protect people in Minnesota. This does not in any way infringe upon anybody's Second Amendment rights. If you're a legal gun owner in Minnesota, this does not. The government is not coming to take your guns.
I
But
hate
if
that.
if it's determined at a point in time that you are not in a good state in that at that point in time, that you should not be around your firearms because you might harm yourself or others, they can go to court. They have 14 days that they have to hold that hearing within, and then at a later date, they reevaluate, and you may get your firearms back. They may say, "Hey, we need little bit longer," but that's a really critical piece of legislation that will protect many people in Minnesota. And then, on a fun note, there are new license plates in Minnesota that people can get starting in 2024, in alignment with the different athletic teams in Minnesota. So the Vikings have one that's coming
Oh,
out. The
cute.
Twins have one. I believe the Lynx are also permitted to design one, and there's I think Minnesota United is another one. So it's kind of, that's a fun thing, but those are some of the new laws that are going to take
What
effect in
what
January.
about the flag? Did they come up with the flag yet?
It's narrowed down to 3 finalists, and I don't know if you saw the 4th, I think it was a 4th grade class where they asked them to give feedback, and I think my favorite comment was the kid that said, "This flag is too flaggy." Like it looked just like a flag,
Flaggy.
flaggy.
That's a cute
So,
word. I like the
yeah,
word flaggy.
yeah.
Uh, I always thought that we should have some funness in the flag. I mean, they're too stodgy. I think, like maybe put a loon in there, or a star, a North Star, because with you know
The North Star
yeah,
State.
exactly, or something, or maybe a loon looking at the north. I mean,
Well, and a loon is in the new state seal design,
yeah,
that I
yeah,
believe that they've floated would include a loon.
yeah, yeah. One more thing that you said
Excuse
before.
me.
Are you okay?
Yep, I just hiccuped. I'm
Oh,
good.
okay, good. We don't want any more sick co-hosts on the show today.
No illness.
Anyway, we were talking about this before. Going back to what you were saying about red flag laws, which I think are amazing. But there are two things I wanted to ask you. Number one, and you can respond. We have states that are surrounding us that don't give a damn about. You could be a total psychotic and have a gun, and they don't care. So how do we prevent that issue? Because if Minnesota is responsible and the rest of the states around you aren't, they could still get in there somehow, right? So
Mhm.
that's number one. And number two, the AR-15 and those guns that have multiple, rounds, where you have 100 rounds and you can kill the Ukraine army with one. We don't need this kind of stuff. So what are we going to do about that? We have a minute left, so can
That's a
you do a
long,
quick?
complex question. So I know in terms of, right, so state borders, and I will not, I'm not an expert on this topic, but I know that there are different reciprocity laws in terms of like ownership and what you can and can't do in terms of crossing borders with that. And I don't know, I don't know the specifics of Minnesota in terms of reciprocity with gun ownership. And as for firearms with large magazines, or automatic firing, it's complicated, right? I can see on one hand there are people in places like museums that keep some of these pieces for historical purposes and study. cosplaying as insurrectionists, you don't need those things.
No,
You
no.
don't need those things.
Anyway, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you, Austin, for coming today. And again, we miss you, Matt. We hope to see you soon. Thank you for joining us on the Downright Upright Show. Thank you for your support with your clicks, your subs, and all that good stuff. We're going to wave goodbye. We love you. Happy holidays. Bye.